A part of it, I don't think we do a good enough job ourselves on really educating Canadians on the fishery and some of the misconceptions. We're generally relatively small organizations, and we just got a lot of work to do just to make sure that the logistics of our fishery, our management plans are out. We're dealing with the problems of our members, our pricing and stuff. So I think collectively we got to do a better job on that. But one of the weaknesses, and it's a little unique in fishing, we do not have a federal department that really advocates for the fishery. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans actually takes on much more of a regulatory role, and in some ways an enforcement role. And those types of roles do not jive very well with promoting the industry. So we're a little unique and we've tried to identify that, to find a group within the federal government to promote our seafood more, promote the work that we do more. So, I think as far as some national organizations, we try to do it a little bit, but I think we got a long ways to go. And I would say some of the biggest detractors and a lot of the misconceptions I come from, generally, I would say well-intentioned environmental organizations who really just take extreme conservation groups. I think we all think there's value in that, but I've been close to it, that there's the facts are generally not something that are important sometimes on their agenda, and it's regrettable, but they have significant lobby and support and a lot of growing influence, I would think, on a national scale, internationally as well. And sometimes it's hard to, if some of these massive international conservation groups are putting out misconceptions and myths, it's hard to get the truth out there in the face of that. Well, I'm really glad that I got that question. An informed audience, I like it. On that, I had the opportunity to meet with the fisheries minister. So she was Minister Joyce Murray came to the portfolio, I would say last October, I believe. So I met with her in November. She came to Newfoundland and Labrador. Initial conversations. Not surprisingly, not understanding very much, but appreciate the initial conversations. Met again in Ottawa in December with Canadian Independent Fish Harvester Federation, and the conversation was about downsizing the fishery and the need to retrain people for jobs. And as I said, our industry is actually growing and the value is continually increasing. It was off base. We had a follow-up meeting from that with the Canadian Independent Federation, where that comment was made. We have to leave as many fish in the water to reduce carbon. Number one, I don't actually think that leaving the fish in the water is something that actually reduces carbon, but I'll leave that there because I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that piece. But the point was that I talked to colleagues in BC who had fisheries shut down when they didn't believe the evidence was there. Put a lot of herring fishery in BC. We had received a lot of comments where the minister had said this before. And quite frankly, I thought the minister was really out of touch with the fishery, and the priorities were only on what she would have seen as conservation. And that would have been extremely damaging to the people that I work with every day in our fisheries. So it was a pretty aggressive move, and by putting that out, and it certainly made the relationship with the minister's office more difficult after, but I knew that going in. But in the meantime, I think it raised the alarm and I really believe the minister to put attention, shone some light on the comments she had made, and I think it's been helpful, and there's been more informed discussions on what our fishery should look like since. I mean, I think those were us in the fishery are probably people who are, depending on that, are, and I guess like other resources like farmers, seeing the impacts of climate change. So we really need more work, science work done to understand what the impacts of these changes and the changes in the environment that are happening more quickly than we would have historically seen. I mean, there's always been cycles in the past where our ecosystem, marine environments have changed, but generally we've had a little bit more time to adapt. So things are changing more rapidly now, and that's putting us in a precarious situation. And harvesters, really in particular, just harvesters, managers trying to figure out what is happening. We're seeing big changes in some of the fish populations. So I think we, first of all, agree that dealing with climate change is a responsibility for all of us. And I think, we're looking at some ways to have fishing fleets move to electrification, as opposed to the gas and diesel. And the small scale fisheries, I think we're in a good position to be able to do that. So I think we all got to be part of that solution. But it's going to be difficult if we don't do something to curb climate change. Even our coastal infrastructure. I mean, 3 feet or a few feet change in sea level literally put a lot of us underwater here. So I mean, we take it very serious, but in the meantime, I don't think we're necessarily big contributors. We have a small scale fisheries generally and do that really efficiently. So I think people can eat our seafood and be comfortable knowing that this is done sustainably on a lot of different levels. No real easy answer to that one. I think there's a variety of species, and if they have access to what's in the ocean off our shore, I think that can be sustained for a long time. But the only thing is that the fish populations will probably change and have changed drastically. Like we've had a massive explosion of redfish in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, so much so that it actually equals 90% of all of the biomass in the survey in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So what that's doing, that's devouring larvae of other species. We're seeing it devour shrimp. So those people get access to that resource. I think they can be sustained. There'll be challenges, but I think they can be sustained for some time. But if it didn't happen, and we'd definitely be challenged to adjust. In the short term. I mean, we've seen the last couple of years, we can do a lot of work from remote locations. So whether that's tech and support, we can do, certainly we have the technology in most places to be able to do that. I think we have opportunities to grow tourism, and there are probably some other things we can do in different areas. But to replace the fishery, there would be no one obvious way to do it. So if we had to stop fishing in rural Newfoundland and Labrador now, there's no way to transition without significant pain. But if there was, I mean, I guess we'd be like the rest of the world. There'd be some opportunities, but not as good as fishing, that's for sure. Well, I would say just following that chain of the fish. So from the people who are on the water, obviously, that's one. Then there's certainly a number of jobs that are related to it on land in processing and marketing and sales in fisheries, which are pretty interesting jobs. And I think most people really probably more dynamic than sales in a lot of different things. If you're selling selling paper or photocopiers or something. I don't know. Fish has a, there's a lot of movement that can add stress because of the lack of stability. But I think it's interesting. There's a growing demand for science, around the marine ecosystem. Like we have uh, in Canada, DFO. I mean, you got about a $3 billion budget there. So all people from those who are working on Coast Guard vessels, supporting fisheries in that way, whether there's fisheries observers or officers, enforcements, incredible amount of science work done, particularly in DFO, but whether that's, those in the academic world, whether they're supporting through science or policies or management, there's literally thousands of more jobs related to that just in the areas that we're impacting it. Right here, our union alone, we are relatively small, but we generally have around 35 people here supporting our membership, which is mostly fisheries, interesting jobs, working with fishermen and science programs and everything else like that. And then seasonally, we have a lot of people who do science technical work in summer times and everything else. So I think if you're interested in this, but you're, for whatever reason, you can't or don't want to get on a boat, I think there's lots of options to be involved. I think some people who get into it, and about the job itself, is just the freedom of it. There's something special being about on the ocean, seeing, as much as we have concerns with the growing populations of seals and whales consuming a lot of fish. I mean, it's certainly a pretty cool environment when you see that kind of thing. And you just generally never ever know what you're going to see or get in that kind of business. You know what I mean? That's what I loved about it. So I would have fished for over 10 years. And that's the thing. It's good to get up every morning and get out. And most days were great. I would say fishing is probably the one job that on a good day it's the best job in the world, but on those bad days it could be the worst job in the world at times too. Just it's a rough environment. So but I think never knowing kind of what you're going to get is pretty unique for most people going to work every day. And I don't have the stats on these, but basically it's just a genetic anomaly that you see. And sometimes you see like a yellow lobster on one side and black on another side. Sometimes there's blue, sometimes orange, sometimes the white albino lobster. You see it in lobster more than other species, but I forget the 1 in a million type things of these different. I've seen stats before, but basically it's just a real genetic anomaly that you see once in a while. Like you see blue ones more than some of those other half and half color ones, but it's definitely, like I said, that's one of the things. I mean, when you wake up and you see that coming up in your pot, I mean, it's the science behind it. The genetic change in structure might not be that exciting, but it's pretty cool when you do see it. So that's I don't have all the stats on it. I hope that's a good enough answer.
Are they worth more?
I would say, and a lot of times when you see a really unique one, I've seen people, donate them to aquariums and things like that. I mean, it seems kind of, it wouldn't seem right to just sell that like the rest of the lobster and just have it consumed. So I think people try to find a new home or do something else with it. But technically, I believe it's probably worth more, but I believe the meat will taste the exact same.
Yeah, I think that was another question in chat is do they taste different either? So I'm not too sure about that, but I would assume they taste the same.
Yeah, generally they would be the same. Yeah.
Well, I think we're about ready to wrap things up, but I just wanted to say Thank you so much, Keith, for joining us. This was a really informative and interesting talk about what goes on fisheries. We've had fisheries from the West Coast, and it's great to have someone come and talk about the East Coast and what that lifestyle is like, what that fisheries industry is like. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we can have you on again so that I can actually remember to introduce myself next time.
Okay. Yep. No worries. No, it was all good. I appreciate it. Like, I wasn't sure what people expected, but I hope it was a valued half an hour, 45 minutes. So thank you. Happy to come back.